There's a lot of ways to describe things in a negative manner.
I feel
So
like regrettable 19 would be the best one because at any time it felt like anytime someone was going to bid $19, it came with an edge of regret. Like, I don't know if
we've
about this one.
we've all had a regrettable 19 in our lives.
Yep. Hi everybody, welcome to Smark Avengers. This is Corey.
I was just going to say, don't start with that one.
This is Corey. With me is just Dylan. John is not joining us today because John is doing something.
He's been he's been interrogated by the Secret Service.
Which Secret Service?
Well, it's a secret.
Oh, there you go. So
they said they were the Secret Service, but I didn't see any ID cards.
they weren't
So.
showing badges.
No, he might just be in a room with four dudes.
It's a real
doing
dream catcher situation.
something. I don't know what he's up to, but I assume being questioned by them. You know.
Well, so that's actually a pretty decent segue. So, something came about. I was not able to record a couple of weeks ago because I think I was sick. And so you and John picked up the ball and carried it, American football
Well, I
style.
feel like we fumbled that ball as soon as we had access to it.
I mean, when you start off an episode with about 7, 8 minutes of just hot dog content.
Yeah.
I mean,
Of all of which I forgot that we said. I remember the Katy Perry stuff. I did not remember we started talking about hot dogs.
well, if you ever go into the archives, it's there. If you're wondering
Okay.
which episode to watch, it's the one with Hot Dog Mania in the title or whatever the fuck that was.
It's the one with Katy Perry as the thumbnail.
Yeah.
She's in space with me and John.
So what caused
You
that
know.
is in the course of the conversation, one of you realized that there was a Katy Perry comic book, and
Yes.
it got you thinking about celebrity related comics. And
Yes.
I knew exactly what you were talking about because of I used to use this website called Fresh Comics, which every week would show you what comics were coming out. That way, I would just take a literal list of when I go to the store, I'm going to pick this, 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 and this up. And I
Katy
would
Perry.
always see it. Katy Perry, Katy Perry, Katy Perry. Got to get all the variant covers. Um,
Of course.
but the publishers were always listed in alphabetical order. I don't know why they did that, and they just didn't go Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, everything else.
Yeah.
But that's just the way they did it. So I was always seeing Blue Water Comics near the top, and Blue Water Comics always had comic books that were like celebrity related or politician related. So when you guys were talking about that, I knew exactly what you were talking about, and I think it was like, wouldn't it be fun if we just did an episode talking about these celebrity comics? So I think John might purposely avoid this one because John didn't do his homework.
Well, here's the thing. I want to make this clear, right? I was convinced we could make like comedy gold out of this, and John is being interrogated by the Secret Service, and you were like, "I don't know if we can get a full episode out of this," until you started to research it a bit more, and then you're like, "Oh my god,
This is insane.
what have we stumbled into?"
Yes.
You know.
So
I was pretty confident we'd get a couple of laughs out of a Bill Hicks comic. The Ellen DeGeneres comic obviously tickled me and Corey because we're big Ellen fans. This hasn't been known on the show, but we're big, obviously not fans of the way she treats the people that work for her.
yes.
He's a monster.
We
I
were on the
think her
forefront
being a
of though
monster
her
is
being a
what
piece of
we're-
shit though, I have to say.
But that's the thing. I feel like her being a monster is what we like about Ellen DeGeneres.
Yes. We just
Now
recognized it.
again, yes, we were ahead of the curve. Again, we don't want to toot our own horns here, but we were ahead of the curve, and we were like, okay, she's a horrible person. And it's fascinating that she's still on television. And then she had her own comic book, which was again part of this comic book brand. Her comic didn't seem to be very interesting, so I didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
You know.
So, as you pretty much suggested, like what started off is just kind of like, let's see what insane, here's a bunch of comics written about celebrities, like who's buying this, who's reading these, like what's the quality of these. It kind of turned into like the more we started reading about it, the more like bizarre it was getting. So,
What's the quality of these? I think we know.
yeah, indeed. So let's just get out the gates and immediately talk about it. TidalWave Productions is the name of the company, formerly known
Mm.
as Blue Water Productions, formerly known as Stormfront Media and Publishing, and formerly known as Storm Entertainment. They have had a lot of different iterations on the name. They are based out of
So
Port.
you know that whenever a company has to change their name 4 or 5 times during their run as a company, that it can only be for like legitimate reasons and not shady business practices at all. You know
Maybe
what I
not even
mean?
necessarily shady business practices, just not successful business practices, I would also say. But
Over here, well,
yes,
I want to use this as an example real quick, but over
okay,
here in the United States of Kingdom,
United States
we
of
had
Kingdom.
this we had this delivery service that was called Hermes. You know, it's like delivery service. And it was notoriously terrible. If you got your order delivered by Hermes, it would be late, or it wouldn't turn up, or it would get lost, or they wouldn't deliver it properly. There's always a lot of problems with it. And then they changed their name, but didn't tell anybody. They changed their name to Every, and so now everybody's like, "Oh, I fucking hate this Every company," because they didn't change the way they did business at all,
No,
but they just changed the name
slap
so
a new
that
coat of
people
paint
would
on
think,
it.
"Oh, exactly." They're like, "Oh, it's a different company. Better than that Hermes fucking thing. It's the same company with a different name." And I suspect that this um this company had to do that a lot, where they're like, "Oh no, we're not Stormfront. You know." And then you're like, "Okay, but you're the same. You're in the same building with the same people. You're the same company. Your
Yeah.
logo is slightly different." You know?
So this company, Tidal Wave, is based out of Portland, Oregon, and their main production output is they publish biographical comics, adaptations from movies, and original titles with self-created characters. Brief history: the company first started in 2001 as a production studio of Image Comics, where their signature series were 10th Muse and The Legend of Isis. This came to an end when the company declared bankruptcy 2 years later in 2003. The company was then revived again as Blue Water Productions in 2007 with the signature series Ray Harryhausen Presents, which they made in conjunction with Ray Harryhausen, who, if you're familiar with Ray Harryhausen, the old Clash of the Titans, dude was a master of like claymation and
Yeah.
stop motion film.
Stop motion. Yeah.
So they were taking a lot of like his story beats, his character designs and whatnot, and just making stories out of them. Other signature series: Vincent Price Presents, which was made in conjunction with Vincent Price's daughter, and William Shatner Presents, which was made in conjunction with William Shatner. They signed a deal in 2009 to republish rock and roll comics from a defunct publisher called Revolutionary Comics. That deal ended in 2013 with 7 volumes of the 8 left unpublished. So they only put out one in 4 years. They did a collaboration with the Graphic Classroom. It was announced in 2011, which resulted in the company creating free lesson plans to tie in with the series of biographical comics. They became a pioneer in digital-first publishing in January 2012 with the release of Gabby Gifford and Mitt Romney's bio comics on the Nook and the Kindle prior to their print versions. So
Wow.
before Marvel and DC were putting out comics digitally first, Blue Water got there first. Blue Water
Can you
ended.
imagine like getting ahead of the company and you're like, we're gonna get ahead of everybody by putting our comics digitally. We gotta make a really good first step. What are we gonna put out first? It's really gonna put us on the map because we'll be the first guys to do it. I know. Comic about Mitt Romney.
And Gabby Gifford, two American
That'll get the people
politicians.
interested.
Um, they ended their distribution deal with Diamond Comics in 2012. Diamond, by the way, recently declared bankruptcy not that long ago, so I guess Blue Water gets the last laugh. But anyway, they ended their deal with Diamond in 2012 after some of their titles were canceled for not meeting sales benchmarks. So Diamond will not ship your stuff unless there is a demand for it, and there just was not really a demand for it.
I
So
think that's a
they
fair compromise, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fair. So their distribution was taken over by Comic Flea Market, which operates a print-on-demand service. Following this, Arcana Studio bought up a majority of the company's non-biographical original content, including 10th Muse and Legend of Isis. They changed the name to Stormfront Media and Publishing in 2015 with a TV production deal for their property Insane Jane, which required the company to differentiate itself from another production company of the same name. A second name change to Storm Entertainment later that year was undertaken in order to end in any confusion with the company of the controversial Stormfront message forum. Stormfront being a racial hate website. So you want to make sure your name's not that, huh? This
Mhm.
rebranding coincided with a change to a digital-centric business plan. The company regained its original name, TidalWave Productions, in 2016, and has been publishing through Ingram and various other distributors. They continue to produce the following titles: Female Force, Stormy Daniels Space Force, Force of the Trojans, Soldier of Fortune, Juliet, Dorian Gray, Political Power, among other titles, and they are represented by the Bohemia Group in Los Angeles. So before we get any further, we got to talk about the man behind Blue Water, TidalWave, Stormfront, what have you, and that is Darren
Yes.
G. Davis. Are you familiar with who Darren G. Davis is?
No, but I have, in the process of researching some of the comics for this show, come across that name.
Okay, so this is where it like took a turn for me when I was researching a lot of this stuff, and it's because I was astounded by the fact that this is not just some guy. So Darren began his career doing marketing for E Entertainment Television, the USA Network, and Lionsgate Entertainment. He then entered the comic publishing, working for Jim Lee at Wildstorm, which was then acquired by DC Comics, and he also was the president of Beyond Entertainment. He then founded TidalWave Productions in 2000. So he has history in the industry. I mean, working under Jim Lee, working at Wildstorm, before making that jump over. So he is also one of the main contributors to this company. He 10th Muse was his story. Other titles that he has had is Legend of Isis, Orion the Hunter, Judo Girl, The Blackbeard Legacy, Victoria's Secret Service, and The Misadventures of Adam West. Which is
Victoria's Secret Service is terrible. A terrible, terrible pun.
so anyway, yes. Dave Darren also has been HIV positive since 1999 and uses his platform to educate and reduce stigma on HIV. Great stuff there. He works with various different charitable organizations to bring awareness and raise money for HIV and AIDS research. Awesome work there. The only other thing I will point out is when he married his husband, they were walked down the aisle by pop star Debbie Gibson. Do you know who Debbie Gibson is?
I do.
Isn't that's the part that I was like, all right, that came out of left fucking field.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Wait,
was
does she
like,
have a comic for him?
I don't think she
I don't
does.
think so. I don't think she does.
I don't think she does. So
That's gonna sting,
we gotta
right?
sting
Just
a little
comics for
bit.
fucking David Beckham's got a comic and she doesn't.
So
He wasn't even at the wedding.
so pretty much like they caught fire doing these biography comics very quickly. To kind of jump back into just going through the. Here's the fun thing. Wikipedia is a valid source because their sources are cited. If you're going to quote Wikipedia, though, actually quote the sources itself. For the sake of our recording and to keep things at a nice and tidy hour long if possible, I'm just going to be reading from the Wikipedia. So there is your asterisk for all of the English professors out there who will critique me for not properly citing sources. Anyway,
No, I think an R is pretty wishful thinking.
honestly, I was surprised that it did not feel like it, but that Charles Xavier recording was 2 hours. I was like, well, that went by quick. So
Yeah,
anyway,
it did. Well, we had a lot of jokes to make about him.
in killing babies.
Killing his baby, killing his sister.
All right. In 2009, the company ventured into biographical comics with Female Force, a series celebrating influential women in society and popular culture. In the subsequent years, Blue Water Productions filled their growing biography comics niche with other titles profiling popular figures in politics, entertainment, literature, and others. Less than half of Blue Water Production publications are biography. I know it's cited. I have a hard time believing that
I
because
also don't believe that.
when you go and you find the information, if you go to Comic Vine, most of the content that you see is of the biographical comics. But anyway, Blue Water
Well, can
Productions.
I tell you?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I had a big list of some of the celebrities that I wrote down and I found very notable. Shall I do that now, or should we do that after you finish?
Let me get through this, and then we'll jump right into it. I just want to get all the history stuff out of the way before we dive. Quote, Blue Water Productions attempts to utilize the power of celebrity to broaden comic distribution. We tried something different to get new readers into comic book stores, and it is working. We get a lot of flack from the true comic book fans thinking that we're ruining the industry, but we're doing our part to help it. Fame, Justin Bieber, was initially distributed exclusively at Walmart, for example. Although many of the biography comics are unauthorized, the company does reach out to most of its subjects to participate. In 2010, they put out Female Force Charlene Harris, which is the first authorized Female Force biography comic. She did interviews with the writer so that they would get a lot of information correctly. Blue Water has donated profits made off of the biography comics to charities of the subject's choice, as was the case with Fame Ellen DeGeneres. Criticism surrounds the potentially exploitative nature of biography comics. Response from Blue Water highlights positive aspects of potentially expanding comic readership. Furthermore, the company defends its right to provide timely coverage that its audience demands. According to Davis, speaking about the upcoming infamous Charlie Sheen comic, quote, there are those who are going to complain that we're exploiting Charlie Sheen. But honestly, this is no different than People magazine devoting most of an issue to a story, or TMZ, or Slate, or the general media's constant coverage of breaking developments. If Charlie Sheen contacted us right now and wanted us to donate some of the potential profits to a charity of his choosing, we would happily do so. In addition
Can I
to...
just say,
Yes.
can I really quickly just say, to use the defense, some people might call this exploitation, but this is no different from all the other people that exploit him. Is it interesting defense?
It is. It's a choice. In addition to Female Force, the company publishes the biography comic lines Political Power, Fame, and also Famous Authors. In 2009, Blue Water announced it would be reprinting defunct publisher Revolutionary Comics. We mentioned that. They did not manage to do that. And yeah, so that is pretty much the history of that. That's why they got into it. I will say, saying that we're doing this to broaden the comic book readership, while also earlier in the article pointing out how Diamond stopped working with them because they weren't selling enough comics, feels like you're not hitting your mark.
Suspicious, isn't it?
A little bit. Um,
Yeah.
and again, this is, by the way, we are not making any sort of accusations or anything about it. There's just a lot here that I was not able to find out some certain information, and now reading that Diamond stopped publishing for them, or stopped, sending out comics for them, that makes a lot more sense why I was not able to, because Diamond was always the gold standard of determining sales and profitability. There was always that saying that unless a comic book was in the top 20 or it was breaking this many numbers, it was always going to be subject for cancellation. So if Diamond distribution was like, hey, we can't do this for you anymore, that's a good sign to me that you are not being profitable.
Right. Right. It's very suspicious,
Yes.
I think, that we couldn't find any concrete sales numbers of any of their comics.
Now, it also could
And
be, and I don't know for sure, TidalWave Productions might be a private company, and they would not be subject to making that information public to begin with. So there's
right.
that as well.
They don't have to.
They do not have
There
to.
is. No.
And that's,
But it would be nice if they did.
yes, that it is absolutely their right to keep that information private. That is their prerogative. That is their business.
But in that, it's also our right to ruthlessly make fun of them.
Well, I mean, that's, we're not known for our hard-hitting journalism. We are known for finding silly things and poking fun at them. So
We are well known for making fun of stuff,
now
correct?
that we have
So
given you a crash course into what is Blue Water, Tidal Wave, Stormfront, Stormwatch, Stormageddon, um,
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels, Space Force. Um,
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Dylan, do you want to read through your list of titles that you found very interesting, and then
Yes.
we can start looking at some of these things.
So before we started recording, me and Corey were going through. We very quickly named a couple of their original IPs. One of which was Bartholomew and this Bartholomew of the Scissors, which I was like, "What the fuck does that mean?"
Yeah.
And you named a couple of other original IPs as well, of which I think we got to. I'm gonna say five. Right? We did not name a whole lot of original IPs.
Yes.
However, the information on the biographical side of things much more lucrative, which we think throws shade to their claim that they say 40% of their stuff was
Less
biographical
than
stuff.
half. Yeah, they said less than half. Which you could, I
Right.
mean, you could be
That's
theoretically right and say 49.9.
yeah. So I'm gonna say that since we could only really find information on less than 10 of their original IPs, but we did notice that they made comics about Ellen DeGeneres, Dirk Benedict, Kim Kardashian, Katy Perry, Mark Zuckerberg, the women in politics, female force, but also female force outside of women in politics, Betty White, Justin Bieber, David Beckham, Adam West. We mentioned Adam West, Bill Hicks, the 70s, just all of the
Just the
70s.
70s.
Oprah Oprah Winfrey, Joe Biden, Obama, Barack Obama's dog.
Christ.
Barack Obama got one as well, but the dog got one. Barbara Walters, Michael Jackson, Ronald Reagan, Ted Kennedy, Sarah Palin, the Beatles, and J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling, I wouldn't want to offend her. That's like a cursory glance at their website. Give me information to all of those. Right? There's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go into the details of some of them at some point during the course of this show. But it's just that's a big random list of celebrities to just be like, I think to broaden people's horizons, we need to make a comic book about Ted Kennedy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, do
So,
we need that?
so real quick, female force. This is the description of female force. Female Force offers a broad examination of strong and influential women who are shaping modern history and culture. Other prominent and influential female authors, business executives, entertainers, journalists, politicians, and activists are currently in development. The biographical comic series has drawn a firestorm of media attention in the past month, including features on Live with Regis and Kelly, CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, and in People magazine, Los Angeles Times, Chicago Tribune, USA Today, and thousands of blogs and other media outlets. Quote, "It's great they're doing these comics," stated CNN. The comic books are in print at Amazon.com, Powell's, and Barnes& Noble. Also, you can download the comic to your e-reader from iTunes, Kindle, Comixology, DriveThru Comics, Google Play, Madefire, Overdrive, iVerse, Biblioboard, Flipkart, Axis 360, Epic, Blio, and Tidal, ComicBlender.com, Indie Comic Tracker, Wheeler, Scoop, Nook, Kobo, and wherever ebooks are sold. Over 60 of the Female Force comics are available worldwide digitally. So, for all intents and purposes, this is a comic book publisher that is putting the onus of actually publishing on you to buy the book because they are print on demand by the sound of it.
But also, I think it's really important to say this, right? So earlier we established that we couldn't find their
Sales
publishing
figures.
numbers,
Yeah.
possibly because they have the right to withhold that information, possibly because it's
Just might
questionable.
sell, yeah.
And you're telling me that guys who have had their comic books mentioned, publicized on at least 5 different television channels in the United States and thousands of blogs on the internet, and their sales figures are still questionable. Like I'm gonna say, if I had that kind of publicity about my comic book, I would hope somebody bought it.
I mean,
Right? There
here's the
seems like a
thing.
lot of
Did you ever see like the Jay Leno jaywalking or whatever the funny news headlines bits that he would do? Some of those
this.
mentions could have just been something simple as that, like, "Oh, did you hear about that today? Oh yeah, there's a comic about Nancy Pelosi. Isn't that funny?" And like they're like, "Got to mention, put it on the site."
The thousands is what's throwing me off. I don't believe that number.
That's
How
true.
do they find that? How do you know that it's
Well,
more than 1,000?
I would probably do is I would Google female blog. Look at how many hits came up. Clearly, they're talking about us. So,
I would hope it's more than 1,000 if that's what you're googling.
so anyway, here's some examples of female force. I would share the screen with you, by the way, because I am on the TidalWave Productions website, but it would be fruitless because the images on the site are broken. So you would only be seeing like little windows that have a question mark in them because the graphic is a broken link. So we have
Again, very suspicious.
and by the way, if you want me to stop, I can read you the description of the book because all of these have their little elevator pitch in them. Barbara Walters, Cher, Nancy Pelosi, Anne Rice, Silver Screen Legends, Chelsea Handler, Women of Europe, Gloria Steinem, Women in the Media, Lady Almina, who I guess is the real woman that they based Downton Abbey on. Downtown Abbey. Um, Madonna, Hillary Clinton, the graphic novel, Ayn Rand, Mother Teresa, Nancy Reagan, Women of Comedy, Paula Deen, Kylie Mingle, Oprah Winfrey, Queen Elizabeth II, Melinda Gates, Margaret Thatcher, Hillary Clinton, Road to the White House, Sheryl Sandberg, Women in the 80s, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, Conservative Women of Politics, Martha Stewart, Gabrielle Giffords, Wonder Woman. I'm curious. It is so the book is about William Marston. It is not about Wonder Woman. You can write a comic
Yeah, I was
about
gonna
William
say.
Marston. You cannot write a comic about Wonder Woman.
Well, they already have.
Well, yeah, they're doing the history of William Martin and his his kinky self that
I'm just,
came up with Wonder Woman.
just saying, if you want to read a book about Wonder Woman, that's literally
Just
the
read
reason she
Wonder Woman.
exists. Yes.
Sarah Palin, the sequel, Women in Politics, Rosie O'Donnell. Oof. We got your goat on that one, bud.
The sequel.
The sequel, yeah. Rosie O'Donnell, Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton's come over here a couple times. Condoleezza Rice, Barbara Streisand, Stephanie Meyer, Tina Fey, Sarah Palin, the graphic novel,
Ah,
Kathy Griffin, Michelle Obama, Meredith Vieira, Ruth Handler, creator of Barbie, Laura Ingraham, more women in politics, Ellen DeGeneres, Carla Bruni, Princess Diana, RuPaul, Sharon Osbourne, Julia Child, Olivia Newton-John, Michelle Obama, Year One, like Batman Year One, but it's the former First Lady. Charlene Harris, Carolyn Kennedy, Carrie Fisher, uh, Mariana Huffington, or Ariana Huffington, Liza Minnelli, Betty White, J.K. Rowling, Sonia Sotomayor, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Martha Stewart, Special Edition, Anne Rice, Bonus Edition, Laura Ingraham, another Sarah Paulin book, Activists, Angelina Jolie. So those are the ones they have listed on their website.
okay.
So that's Female Force. That's their first one. That's what got them out on the gates of like, hey, these are bestsellers for us. The other series is Fame. So these are the two big ones because there's also Infamous, which they mentioned with the Charlie Sheen thing. Infamous only put out two books under that brand, and that was Lindsay Lohan and Charlie Sheen. And I feel like perhaps it was just a situation of like not all publicity is good publicity, and they like nipped it in the bud. But
Mm.
regardless, Fame. Fame focuses on culturally relevant celebrities and other pop culture icons. Issues feature such personalities as Robert Pattinson, 50 Cent, Kristen Stewart, David Beckham to Taylor Swift. Fame gives us the ability to tell more interesting stories about a wider variety of notable personalities. Conversely, it allows us to focus the scope on our other biography titles like Female Force and Political Power to more socially and politically important figures. The new comic series have been featured on Rolling Stone, E! Entertainment Television, New York Times, and hundreds of other media outlets. Quote, the comic book every child should own, was quoted by BuzzFeed. It's great they're doing these comics, which is the same quote they did from CNN.
Wait. I don't think if you're using a BuzzFeed quote, as one of your positive spins and very few other ones, I'm gonna say that this. I'm gonna call the legitimacy of this into question because I do not believe that BuzzFeed is a very reputable organization.
So I think that remember how we mentioned that like the guy who runs it is obviously very well connected because he worked for EA Entertainment in their marketing department. I'm wondering if how some of these blurbs are getting out is because he knows people in the business.
Well, also you said he's very well known for working in marketing. You can see why a lot of these blurbs are the way they're written because they sound impressive until you
Yeah.
spend 2 seconds thinking about it, and then you're like, no, this is all just like buzzwords and spin and
Hmm.
puff pieces, and it's not really. I mean, like you said, oh, hundreds of publications talked about it, but how many of those publications are like, seen this shit? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
We might be on
That
that list next. There's gonna be a quote that Dylan's like, "Can you believe they're making these?"
Listen, if I end
Dylan
up
from
picking
Smark
another fight with
Avengers.
BuzzFeed, I'm happy. And that's publicity for us. People will listen to the show, and then we can go. You see that? We picked a fight with BuzzFeed. Fuck BuzzFeed.
So here's some examples of comics that are under the Fame imprint. Russell Wilson. Do you know who Russell Wilson is?
No.
All right, famous athlete in America. Not a very good athlete in America these days, but he's old. Jennifer
He's
Lawrence, David Bowie, Britney. Is Britney
weird.
Spears? Yeah. Beyonce, the Black Eyed Peas, Big Time Rush, Alex Rodriguez, Adele, 50 Cent, Bon Jovi, Dylan, fellow countryman, Bono, Danica Patrick, Carrie Underwood, Cody Simpson, Jackie Robinson, David Letterman, Conan O'Brien, David Beckham, the cast of Twilight, Drake, Ian Somerhalder, the cast of Glee, issue 1 and issue 2, Demi Lovato, Lady Gaga 2, Kristen Stewart, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga 3, Justin Bieber.
Christian Stewart.
Oh, go ahead.
Christian Stewart, and also a separate the people from Twilight.
Yes.
Okay.
Justin Bieber, the Lady Gaga Omnibus. Lady Gaga, the graphic novel.
Necessary.
Miley
Mm.
Cyrus, One Direction. One Direction 2. Nicki Minaj, Nick Jonas, the One Direction Omnibus. Fun fact here, this one's probably going to need a rewrite. Neil Gaiman. Have to write
Well,
in a
it's
whole.
definitely like an.
They have to
Yeah,
write in
they're
a
gonna need
whole
an
new
afterword.
section to that one, huh?
Yeah, a new chapter.
Tim McGraw, Taylor Swift, Tiger Woods, Tom Daly, Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne. That's the second Sharon Osbourne comic. Tyler Perry, Tyler Lautner, Victoria Justice, Suzanne Collins, the creator of The Hunger Games, Selena Gomez, Pop Stars 1, Korean rapper Psy, Prince, Robbie Williams, Robert Pattinson, The Glee Yearbook, Ryan Reynolds, Taylor Swift bonus, Pop Stars 2, Pop Stars 3. That's just a small sample of fame. Just smidge of fame, tiny bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Um, Dylan, they also made comics about comedians, didn't they?
They did. They have made some comics about. So yes, they made some comics about some comedians. Shall I read the ones that we saw earlier?
By all means.
Okay, so we talked about Bill Hicks. So there's a Bill Hicks comic. Where did they write where is the list? Oh my god, where did they put that list? They get rid of the list.
Oh no.
Oh wait. There it is. How unprofessional of me. Um Wait, did I get rid of the list? Fuck. No, okay, sorry. Cut that bit out. So we had the Bill Hicks comic that we talked about. They also made or intended to make comics about George Carlin, Lucille Ball, Three Stooges, Saturday Night Live, RP in Cincinnati. I'm unfamiliar with what that means. And
WKRP
Red Fox.
Cincinnati was a comedy, a sitcom in the 70s.
Okay. So that's some of the comedians. that they were going to make comics about. I was very confused about this because I don't understand how you could talk about the world of Bill Hicks in comic form. I don't know why comics would be like the most riveting way to enjoy Bill Hicks. You know what I mean? It seems
I feel
just
like there's a
very
preferred method if you want to enjoy Bill Hicks. There seems to be an
well.
obvious way to do it.
I would argue for a lot of these comedians. For example, if you wanted to witness the Three Stooges, I would argue, and I'm an old soul here, but I would suggest the optimal way to enjoy the Three Stooges might be through a video format. And then you'll learn all you need to learn about the Three Stooges.
Now,
And then
my
if you wanted to
question
learn more
is,
about the Three Stooges themselves, you
yeah,
could watch a video biography on the Three Stooges that would
probably has their
be more.
relatives,
Yeah,
people
but
who
even
would,
then, you could read a book about the Three Stooges. Very rarely are you like, I need this to be illustrated and have a lot of the text cut out
I know what they look
for
like
me to be.
already. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
what they look
but
like.
I want to see what they look like as comic books, and also I don't want like there's too much text in this autobiography book. I want like just word bubbles to understand the Three Stooges correctly. That's what I need. Well, the point is, it seems weird, and not just for the comedians, but for a lot of these people, it seems odd that they would make comic books about a lot of these characters. So you think, I don't know if comics is the most optimal way to represent a lot of these people. Do you think that comics is the best way to really represent, Mark Zuckerberg or Ronald Reagan? It's these are they don't seem like visually appealing things to read about, which is part of the joy of comics is the visuals that go along with the text. I can't imagine a whole lot of people. For example, you could argue that a lot of the political ones are there to teach children about politics, but I can't imagine a whole lot of those young children going, "Oh hell yeah, another Hillary Clinton comic, sign me up!" Like that's not going to get them into politics. I don't think it's not going to explain anything to them, and it makes you question who these comics are being aimed at. It's the same with the comedians. A 7-year-old's not going to know who Bill Hicks is, so why would they want to pick up? And also, a 7-year-old shouldn't know who Bill Hicks is. It's not his audience. So why would you make a comic designed for Bill Hicks unless you're aiming it at adults? And if it's aimed at adults, like we said, wouldn't adults have other means of looking up Bill Hicks material?
Now, do you think maybe it's like they're trying to appeal like to the collector's market? Like there's the sort of people out there that would buy anything with like Elvis Presley's face on it because they just love Elvis. So do you think it's maybe an element of that? Maybe they're like maybe there's some people out there who just really like Bill Hicks and will buy anything that Bill Hicks is on.
Well, surely that is exactly what their argument is. The reason that they made so many comic books about celebrity people that they probably shouldn't be making comic books about legally is that they're trying to leech off an already established fan base, which
Yes.
means they don't have to do anything themselves. They're directly hoping that they can get some guaranteed sales based on the good name that somebody else has already spent their entire life making for
Cultivating.
themselves. Exactly. It seems like very shady business practices to make what is an incredibly extensive line of comics based on other people who have done all of the legwork for you already. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
A little
So
suspicious.
a little, yeah. I mean, because like ultimately that kind of comes back down to like, I mean, the answer to every question ever will always be money. It is why did
Yeah.
this thing happen? Why did this get canceled? Why did this get made? Money is usually always going to be the answer. And it just
Well,
like when you look at this, you wonder like, well, yeah, but like how much exactly? Like how is this profitable? Because you do have to pay the artist, you have to pay the inker, you have to pay the letterer, you have to pay the actual writer, and
yes.
and these people are credited, and it just again makes you wonder like are these people getting paid adequately, or are they doing the old like this is a foot in the door kind of deal? I don't know. I don't want to say, and I don't want to speculate because again, the
It's odd.
quickest way to get a cease and desist in the mail.
It's a very odd situation. And like you said, part of it feels a little bit like they are writing these books and bringing it to like a publisher with the intent of going, oh, this will probably sell because it's based on an established name. And then, because we talked about, I don't know if you said this on the show yet, but we find that article about, was it Diamond Publishing,
Yes.
where they were doing comic books and Diamond Publishing were like, we did mention this, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They said, we're not going to continue to publish your comics because they're not selling very well. But it meant that they were making the comics and then bringing it to the publisher, as opposed to the publisher saying, we want comics based on Bill Hicks. And I feel like that's
Yeah, yeah.
probably a very similar model that they're doing. They're making comics and then bringing it to when you said that earlier, you said that where they make the comics where they print on demand. That suggests that there isn't already an established need for these comics. They're making these comics and then putting them out there and seeing which ones sell and which ones don't sell. But they're doing that in the safety of the buy on demand, print on
Yeah.
demand thing. Means that they're not really wasting a whole lot of publishing
You're not wasting
time and
materials,
effort
you're
and
not
money.
sitting on a bunch of backstock.
No, it does once again raise that question of, well, if you're making these things first and then publishing them without a direct audience, how are you getting paid for these things
Mhm.
when you don't have a guarantee that there's going to be, especially for like the artist, you're like, there's no guarantee at all that you will get any money from this
Yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah, yeah.
If this indeed is the way that this establishment seems to be running, it seems like there will be no guarantee for you at all that you will get paid for this. So what other than you getting the foot in the door, what is the incentive for you to make these, unless you really, really, really like Bill Hicks?
I just really wanted to draw a comic about Nancy Pelosi.
You
I just
gotta
think
draw
I could
Ronald
get that.
Reagan.
I just think I could get that Crypt Keeper-esque smile down better than anyone else in the industry.
The only person I want to draw is Betty White. It's the only person I could draw. I have to draw a comic about her. You know, like
And then what we also mentioned earlier, we talked about like the Vincent Price Presents, the William Shatner Presents, the Stormy Daniels thing. Those are not biography comics, obviously. These are
no.
these are established personas giving their name and likeness towards something for the sake of either like they either got paid to do it or it's just another realm. Like for example, the Vincent Price comics are basically like the old EC comics where it was just like horror comics, but it's Vincent Price presents it, and they probably have like panels of Vincent Price introducing the next short story, a la the Crypt Keeper, which is our second Crypt Keeper reference of the episode, which is surprising that he's coming up so often.
Hmm.
But he's our, like he's there to present that. I don't know what the William Shatner thing is, but I mean, I wouldn't be
Wow.
surprised if it wasn't the same deal.
Well, I did some research on a couple of these comics for the
Okay.
benefit of this podcast, and so I have a couple that I took notes for. So I have notes for the Katy Perry one, obviously, and the
Yes.
Mark Zuckerberg one, and they are just rough biographies of the comics. But the Stormy Daniels one
Stormy Daniels.
and
Oh, but
the Dirk,
real quick though, to level set, Dylan, would you like to educate our listeners on who Stormy Daniels is?
well, yes, I would. Stormy Daniels was a former porn star. I believe she's retired from the business at the
Tired
moment.
from the industry.
Who, at some point, well, she's going into comics now.
Hung
She's
up the
got a whole other
boots.
lucrative business.
Hung up the boots.
She gained fame, infamy. She could be one of those infamy comic characters
Notoriety.
where notoriety because a few years ago, I want to say roughly 2016 ish.
Around that time.
Let's say she became infamous for having slept with a pretty important character around 2016, uh, Donald Trump.
She fucked the president and got hush money for it. Essentially, is what happened.
Yes,
Well,
and
she fucked him
she
before
had a
he
lot to
was
say
the
about it.
president, and she stopped
Yeah.
getting hush money for it. Is where it came from.
Yes, and she had a lot to say about that.
Yes.
And so then she segued naturally into making comics.
It's a seamless
But
transition, tale as old as time.
my what I was gonna say was, so the Mark Zuckerberg and Katy Perry ones were well, not autobiographical, biography, whereas the Stormy Daniels Space Force and the Dirk Benedict comic, which I had the pleasure of reading a few pages of, were
Can you also real
co-written.
quick can you also give it to us real quick who's Dirk Benedict?
Dirk Benedict was one of the members of the A Team. I
Okay.
believe he was face.
Okay.
He was the handsome one, ladies' man. He was in a bunch of other stuff as well, but I'm from the A Team. Those two comics were co-written by the people who star in the comics. And I think that's very interesting. Stormy Daniels co-wrote the Stormy Daniels book, and Dirk Benedict co-wrote the Dirk Benedict book. And that's, to me, is much more interesting. That for a few of the comics, they were able to reach out to the celebrities involved and got them so involved that they were like, we have to write our own comic book. And it's fascinating to see what they ended up writing their comic book about. I have information about the Stormy Daniels one. We're going to go into that. I have a little bit of information about the Dirk Benedict one as well.
Okay.
So it's it's interesting that the guys involved with writing their own comics are like, no, no, let me tell it my way. And their way is, yeah, I would say the word interesting is the best way to put it. The Dirk Benedict one, if you can look it up, there was a chance to read like 2 or 3 pages of it online before you had to pay for it. So I did, and it was mystifying. It was very strange. I didn't understand. It's called Dirk Benedict in the 25th century. Every
So
time he is what?
so it is a so these are obviously not autobiographical if it's a fantasy-esque
No.
setting.
Yes, much like the Stormy Daniels one. Um, every time you see Dirk Benedict in the comic, he has a cigar in his mouth. No, he wrote this, so he probably wrote that into the book. I don't know because if you remember in the A Team, Dirk Benedict was not the guy that had the cigar. Do you remember the A Team at all?
Well, yeah, I remember the A Team because that was Hannibal who had the cigar.
Hannibal had the cigar. Base never had the cigar. So
Yes.
do you think this little bit of like wishful thinking on his part? He's like, oh, I wish I was a cigar guy. And now that he has control of his own destiny, he's like, I can finally be the
I'm the
cigar
cigar
guy.
guy.
I'm the cigar guy now. Um, so it was written by Dirk Benedict, Scott Phillips, and Leon Mackenzie, I believe. Um, so that's interesting. Somebody called T. Warren Montgomery was the colorist, letterer, the production character, and also was credited for other. Okay, I want you to remember that by the time you get into the Katy Perry book.
Okay.
But they one of their credits is just for other. You're like, okay, cool. So the Dirk Benedict book starts off with him like in space, flying a spaceship that I assume is the 25th century, and then he makes some kind of wisecrack, and then it cuts back to like present day where he's at like a Comic Con, doing a signing, and then this mad professor turns up and is like, I gotta find somebody that can travel with me back into the future, what I call the present, to fight space aliens. I need to find somebody here that has been part of a team and has also fought space aliens and robots and stuff. And one of the guys at the Comic Con is like, "Oh, Dirk Benedict over there. He was part of a very famous team, and he fought aliens at a different show or whatever." I don't remember. I don't remember what he did where he fought aliens, but
Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica. So the scientist from the future takes this literally and goes, "Oh, you fought aliens and robots. You're the perfect guy for me." And Dirk Benedict makes a couple. This is in the comic. Dirk Benedict makes a couple of funny wisecracks that don't make any sense, and that's where the comic cuts off. You get about 3 pages. Um, and again, I'm like, interesting that you had control of this comic, and this is the way you decided to write A, the comic, and B, yourself.
Have you ever seen the
Um,
show? Have you ever seen the movie Galaxy Quest?
no, but I'm aware
Because
of it.
this is the plot of Galaxy Quest. A bunch of actors that were on a televised science fiction show get approached by aliens at a comic convention. They think the aliens just want to film like a fan film and they'll do it for the money because they're broke. But in reality, get sent up into space and have to help them like fight a great space evil. That is the
Yeah,
plot of
that.
Galaxy Quest.
And then can I also point out that 3 people wrote this comic? It took 3
Were
people
they
to
the
rip off.
people who wrote the script for Galaxy Quest? They're like, well, we got to give him credit.
Potentially. So that's the Dirk Benedict comic. Can I really quickly go into the Katy Perry comic as well?
Oh, by all means.
I'm gonna go back into Stormy Daniels at the end. But remember that I said T. Warren Montgomery was a colorist, letterer, production staff, and other on the Dirk Benedict in the 25th Century comic. The Katy Perry comic is just one of those. It was one of those fame
Yeah.
comics. Assume it's supposed to be about her life. Okay, I believe 11 people were credited. I think it was Comic Vine. That was the resource you had. We could see all the people who worked on the comics, right? So I think it was 11 people were credited for this comic. So Howard Gensler was the writer. Luciano Cars did the cover art. Eduardo Bazan was the penciler. Herman Caber was the colorist. And then T. Warren Montgomery, who worked on Dirk Benedict, was the letterer and production guy. He's in both comics. And then Darren G. Davis, Jackie Stickley, Jared Weisfield, Jason Schultz, James Reed, Haley Marsh, Maggie Jessup, and Nikki Burrows are all credited as other.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Isn't it? So the guy who works for the company and a bunch of other people just have credits for something. Now, why? I also really quickly want to say that the comic stars Katy Perry, understandable, Timothy Leary, and Jimi Hendrix.
Okay, sure. Unauthorized biography.
Yep. All right. So I thought that was worth noting.
Yeah.
So I mentioned Stormy Daniels Space Force,
Yes.
written by Stormy Daniels, Andrew Shade, Darren G. Davis, Michael L. Fritzell, Pablo Martineria was the artist and the cover artist. So Darren G. Davis working his ass off here.
Man of many hats.
Stormy Daniels. Captain Stormy Daniels commands the United Republic of Earth ship called the Helix, led by Ordon, a self-proclaimed very stable genius and ruler for infinity. The United Republic of Earth seek to exploit the galaxy's untapped riches with little regard for who or what is out there. This is all very familiar. On a mission to rescue a scientist responsible for the creation of a devastating weapon capable of destroying the Earth, the URE's flagship is captured by the maniacal Red Queen. Only Captain Daniels, her second in command Dax, her droids, and the mysterious alien called Munch can save us. It's Barbarella meets Star Trek meets Stripperella in a comedy and action and adventure series starring Stormy Daniels. Out of the thing I just described to you, what of that sounds like comedy?
Honestly,
really depressing.
It sounds it on paper it sounds really boring.
Right. It sounds a little bit too close
By
to
the
real
way,
life, and also like
they did make a political power issue for Stormy Daniels. And I'm going to guess it is about Yep, it's a comic about the hush money that she received from Donald Trump.
I feel like there's, like you said, we're gonna go back and talk about wrestling comics at some point because there's a whole lot of
Tons of
great
wrestling
material
comics.
in there. Yeah, this turned out more serious than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
You know,
I think John will be surprised. I think he was just like, oh, I left Dylan and Corey together. They're going to make a bunch of dick jokes. And hey,
don't you think it's funny though when you and me are left to our own devices, we come up with a very well-informed podcast that skirts on legitimate journalism, and when me and John are left to our own devices, hot dogs and Katy Perry.
hot dogs, Katy Perry.
You know,
But I mean,
hot dogs, Katy Perry.
it did lead to this, so we can't fault it. Maybe John is
You
like
can
our
fault it a little
muse.
bit.
Like we need John around
Yeah,
because John's an inspiration to us, like the Greek
I
poets.
think. Yeah, he he's what he's what gets us out of bed in the morning.
Or gets you back into bed at night.
Absolutely. Hard to get out of bed with that guy.
All right, so we're gonna do something a little unusual because normally this is where we would cut to John to talk about like, oh, what movies have you seen, John? But instead, we are going to have a bit of a cliffhanger in a weird way, kind of. So we had this idea last week when we were talking about all of those bizarre Aquaman villains, and like I said, Aquaman has a lot of villains. Some of them are really good, compelling villains, and a lot of them, though, especially in the early days, were garbage, and that's what we were looking at. We're all the garbage Aquaman villains. So that got us thinking about like what other garbage villains are there, and then that got us thinking of like what if we fixed a garbage villain, and then that got us thinking of what if we don't have a choice as to what garbage villain we have to fix. And wouldn't you know it, we did one of our favorite things in the world to do, and that's we made a wheel.
And the wheel.
Yep. So I went to John and Dylan and I said, hey, give me 5 terrible villains. We're gonna put it on the wheel. We're gonna spin the wheel six times, no, 9 times, so that all of us get 3 villains. In our next episode that we record, we are going to present how we will have improved this villain. If we have time, we'll do all 3 each. If we don't have time, we'll just do 2. But that is the assignment. So John does not get to be here to see who he gets to pull. We'll inform him later once he's done with whatever nefarious things that John does when he's left to his own devices.
Yeah.
But
We know what he does.
we know what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and cut to the wheel here in just a moment.
Okay. Beep.
All right, let me know when you can see the wheel. Dylan,
Okay. I'm in mode.
can you see the wheel?
Yes, I can see the wheel.
Okay. So as you can tell, we have 16 names here. We originally had 15, but then someone thought of a really good one, so we threw it on there anyway, and fuck it. So our choices are Jester, Dr. Bong, Black Box, Zebra Man, Water Wizard, the Swarm, the Squid, the Spook, the Hippo, the Grizzly. Now I've noticed something. If your name starts with the and you're a villain, chances are you're not. There's a real strong chance you might not be a good villain. Stilt
There's
Man.
also a good chance that you're going to be an animal.
Yes. Stilt Man, Pigeon Person, Paper Doll, Metalhead, Leapfrog, and the King of Cats. So, how many times would you like us to shuffle the wheel, Dylan?
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, do we want to
Okay.
do this alphabetically to determine, it would go you, me, and then John, and these would be our first entries, or do you want to do it in some other
I
fashion?
I was gonna do. I was gonna say alphabetically.
Okay.
I would imagine if we do it alphabetically, that you would go first.
Oh, that's right. American education system. You don't spell your name with a silent A at the beginning? Your name's not Dylan?
No.
Okay.
Wow. It could be.
Could be. All right, so this will be my very first villain. Here we go.
I'm gonna write them all down so we keep track of them.
All right, and my first assignment is how do you fix perfection? I've got the Nazi scientist
Oh.
made up of bees, the swarm. John will be
John's gonna be so
devastated.
jealous. So jealous.
Devastated.
What's he gonna do?
I don't know. All right, next up though will be your first villain, Dylan. And you
He's gonna
have
be.
drawn. Oh, you're gonna get one of yours. Dylan, you get the Water
Oh,
Wizard.
I really wanted the King of the Cats.
All right, so next up is John, and then we'll move on to our second round.
If he gets King of the Cats, can I trade?
I'll let you guys negotiate that.
Uh,
John is going to get Dr. Bong.
excellent choice.
Excellent. All right, so this is those are our first order of business. I have the Swarm, you have Water Wizard, John has Dr. Bong. This will be my second villain that I have to improve upon. And I am getting the hippo. All right, so I've got the hippo. Dylan, this is your
Oh.
second pick.
Yes, please.
And you're
I hope I
going
get the hippo
to
again.
get... Oh, it's going to be close. Do you get your... You get another one of your picks. You get the jester.
So close.
All right.
It's unfair.
John will get...
I should get the King of the Cats because I can't keep all of my own picks. That's not fair.
John gets one of his picks as Stiltman.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our second round. We've got one more round to go, and so far, none of the ones that I put on the board have been picked.
Mine have been very popular.
You have, yeah. All right, so this will be my last one. Odds are I should get one of mine based off of just math, but we'll see. Metalhead. Okay, so I do get Metalhead. All right, Dylan, this is your second one, or your third one.
If this is King of the Cats, I'm switching them white for a Jester. Nope.
You get the Grizzly.
Okay.
I hope John gets a really bad one. 'Cause he's got Dr.
I mean,
Bong
they're all
and the Stilt.
bad.
He gets Dr. Bong and Stiltman. I mean, he's starting off with a lot of personality. All right, this will be John's
there's a lot
final
of stuff to
pick.
do there.
I think all of yours have been picked so far, Dylan.
I'm very popular.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Nobody got King of the Cats. John got Zebra Man.
Okay.
So, like, oh boy, the most man. I will tell you, I'm a little disappointed. Some of the ones that are left on the board were ones I wanted. I really wanted Squid. I really wanted King of the Cats. I really wanted Paper Doll. I felt like those were three I could have had some real fun with.
Well, hang on. Let's write those down. Okay. Because that was 3: Squid, Paper Doll,
Paper Doll and King of the Cats.
and the Cats. Let's save them for some other time.
Okay. Also,
I'm
Pigeon.
sure we could all do something with them.
Yeah, I mean, we got Pigeon
Yeah.
Person, Black Box, and the Spook, and Leapfrog as well. Those are the
Okay.
our other friends that are left on the board.
I reckon the Squid, Paper Doll, King of the Cats, and Pigeon Person, like, we could save that for later. Those 3 or 4 could be used for something.
They're pretty quality. They're pretty quality.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that was fun.
All right. So, Dylan, you want to give a rundown of who we have for our homework?
So you have to do the Swarm, the Hippo, and Metalhead.
Okay.
I have to do Water Wizard, Jester, and the Grizzly. John has to do Dr. Bong, Stiltman, and Zebraman, or Zebraman, as normal people say.
Swarm, Hippo,
Metalhead.
Metalhead. I'm
Yeah.
writing mine down because to break the kayfabe of this, we do not have a full week to come up with these ideas. We have a couple of days before we record next. But yeah, Dylan, real quick, do you want to tell everybody what you're up to one night a week from 9 to 11?
I watch movies. I'm up to 7,486 movies this year.
I don't know how you find the time.
Me neither. And I only do it 1 day a week as well. How about that? But when I'm not doing that, I have my own radio show that I do online. You can listen to it online. www.bouncedigitalradio.co.uk. There'll be a link in the description in YouTube. I don't know about Spotify. You can listen. Can you?
It's on
I don't know if you can
Spotify.
listen on Spotify. So I do a show UK time from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock on Monday nights. It's a lot of rock music. I usually play. Here's some stuff I played recently: Queens of Stone Age, Pearl Jam, Primus, Pixies, System of a Down. That's some of the stuff I played recently. There's loads of other stuff coming up as well. Blur, Alien Ant Farm, Moontooth, Megadeth, Everclear, Mars Volta, Sun Temple Pilots, Jeff Buckley, Kate Bush.
There you go.
Been playing some Kate Bush. So if you like any of those artists, or if you just want to hear me talk more about hot dogs, you should tune into the show. If you check out the Bounce Digital Radio website, it should tell you when I'm coming on. If you live in part of the world where you don't know what 9 to 11 UK time is, just go to the website and check
Yeah, go to
it out.
Google. It'll tell you.
Yeah, you'll figure it out.
Yeah. Aside from Dylan, I have another show called Large Old Cup. It's once a week, about 29-ish minutes. We just talk about whatever's going on. And we have a Song of the Week recommendation. I actually put together a Song of the Week playlist that I've been collecting all of those various songs of the week for Spotify. And I've been listening to it a lot lately, and I'm surprised at how well it flows together, to be frank.
What's your song of the week this time?
Well, I can't tell you that because we tape. um, Large Old Cup is the second it's done recording, I post it immediately without editing it. Whereas this, I think this episode will air in the beginning of July. So it's kind of hard to. I can't tell you what it'll be in the beginning of July. I could tell
No,
you.
just tell me. Yeah, just tell me one, the recent one.
The most recent one was a song called "My Head Is Fucked Again" by a Scottish punk band called the Murder Burgers.
Good. Good.
But yeah, I have some Damned. I have the Damned on there. I think like twice. I've got the Cramps. I've got Pup. It's nice and varied.
Good.
But aside from that, I think we can go ahead and put a pin into this. Maybe we'll revisit the world of biography comics again someday. You
Mm.
remember in December when we reread Claws and did a book review on Claws, like the first trade
Yeah.
of it? Maybe we do
Yeah.
Stormy Daniels Space Force.
Yeah, I think we should.
This it's a Christmas
We
gift
can
that keeps
find.
on giving.
Yeah, we should totally read it.
All right. Well, until then, we'll see you guys later. Tune in next week as we try to fix a bunch of bad villains.
It's gonna be really good or bad. You have to find out.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Anyway, bye. Bye. And then added in a clip of John saying goodbye from like an old episode.
Is that John?
That's that's him.